Hello everybody. Today we're flying home after being on the Aero Expo in Friedrichshafen for a week. Since it was quite busy with departing airplanes, we decided not to taxi all the way to the beginning of the runway, but to use the access of taxiway Mike to enter the runway halfway. Since we have enough power anyway and the runway is long enough, we can depart earlier than queuing up on taxiway November. We had to wait a few minutes for our clearance, but that way we could enjoy the airship that was flying by. I'm not used to runways that are this wide, so you tend to line up between the center line and, in this case, the right side of the runway. But luckily you can just follow the yellow taxi line. What makes the takeoff interesting and beautiful at the same time is that the airport of Friedrichshafen is in the middle of the city. So once you're airborne, there is not really a place you can go other than fly away, because there's no field or whatever you can land your airplane if something goes wrong. But it's also beautiful that you can fly so close over the houses. After leaving Friedrichshafen, we decided to fly along the Bodensee to the west for a short while and then turn north to the Netherlands. At the Aero Expo, I got a lot of questions from builders and other people that are interested in the combination of the RV7 with the UL Power engine. And one of the most common questions was, what is the performance and fuel efficiency? Until now I've only flown for 10 hours in the RV7, so there's not much data I have right now. So I decided that on the way back, which was not that interesting anyway, I would concentrate on trying to log a lot of data on performance. So together with Joop, we decided to fly at different power settings and see what the results are. Unfortunately, we couldn't go much higher. Here the clouds are still scattered a little bit, but later, as you can see, it will get harder and harder to go higher. So we decided to stay at 3,500 feet. This is not ideal for getting the best performance numbers, but weather decides your boundaries in this case. Let's first look at the, let's say, theoretical performance numbers coming from the UL Power website, which is of course not related to any specific airplane, so it's very theoretical. But let's look at least to where the maximum power and torque is and see where the optimal fuel consumption is. And let's try working from these numbers to determine a good setup. So here are the power and torque curves for the UL Power 520 ISA. And one of the things that is very different from a, let's say, standard Lycoming engine is the high RPM for getting the maximum power. Also interesting is the power versus manifold pressure. There are lines of, let's say, 1500 RPM with a manifold pressure of almost 30 inches, which is almost 1 bar. And I'm not sure how you would get that, because that sounds very unhealthy for the engine. You should have a very, very coarse propeller to reach almost full throttle with only 1500 RPM. And I asked the experts from Airmaster, and they said you should never run the engine under 2500 RPM, because it will just be too much. Well, of course you can if you don't give enough power, but if you would give full throttle with that would probably hurt the engine. So I decided not to go under 2300 RPM and do my settings within that range. The next graphs are on fuel consumption, and what looks interesting is the minimal fuel consumption somewhere at 2400 RPM, because that looks like you get the most bang for your buck. Although the Airmaster controller doesn't support RPMs under 2600 in the cruise setting, in the standard cruise setting, but of course you can do it manually. So I played with it, and here are the results. So here are some shots I took from the EVIS and AMS, and what you can see is I tried to hold 150 knots true airspeed with a manifold pressure of 24 inches. And with 2400 RPM you can see a fuel consumption of 29.4 liters per hour. And if I go down to almost 2300, you get to this, probably sweet spot of 28 liters per hour, which I think is quite good at 3500 feet. But in discussions with Airmaster and UL Power, they claim that you shouldn't go that low in RPM because the propeller is at a very coarse pitch, and it will ask a lot of power from the engine. Yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to go to the absolute minimum, because you will save some money on the fuel, but then you will probably have more wear on your engine, which will in the end be more expensive, I guess. I want to do some more tests later at other altitudes, so I can compare them. But for now, this is at least what I could measure. Although the RV7 has enough endurance to fly from Friedrichshafen to Teuge in the Netherlands in one leg, we decided to take a short rest halfway somewhere in Germany. Main reasons are it was lunchtime and the fuel prices in Germany are much friendlier than in the Netherlands. The UL Power engine uses MoGas. That is the 520 ISA. So the S is the high compressor. So it uses the in Germany called Super Plus. It's the Euro 98 fuel. And there are a lot of airfields in Germany that have this MoGas variant. We decided to fly to Echo Delta Romeo Foxtrot, also known as Bad Dürkheim. The airport has a runway of about 600 feet. It's asphalt, and we could use the runway to backtrack to the fuel station. We fueled up the plane and had a nice lunch, and we continued our way flying home.
Oké. Nou, dat is een mooi vluchtje. Ja, dit soort veldjes hebben wij niet in Nederland, hè?
Wat zeg je?
Dit soort veldjes hebben we niet in Nederland. Met
Nee.
mooie glooiingen en...
Het is wel mooi, toch?
Ja, zeker. Goed. En nu?
En die tanken denk ik, hè?
Ja.
Wat gebeurt er allemaal? 150. Mooi geland. Beter dan wat ik liet zien.
Nee, maar ja, het teelwiel is natuurlijk altijd een beetje moeilijker, hè?
Ja, ja blijkbaar.
Dus, ja, niet blijkbaar. Het is zo. Toch?
Ja, nou ja. Ik ga proberen zonder...
Ja.
Jij gaat helemaal met deze kant.
Ja.
Niet deze. Sorry dat ik ben...
Zie je wel dat je het wel kan?
Ja, ik kan.
Zie je het wel kunt?
Okay, continuing flying my pie in the sky.